Hello, we made it all. I really appreciate you all making the trip here. And I'd like to welcome you all to this historical event where women are uniting to reclaim the power to maintain custody and protect our children. My name is Cindy Dumas, and I am the founder and executive director of the Women's Coalition, a grassroots nonprofit with a singular mission: to raise awareness and end what we call the custody crisis, the systemic discrimination against women in family courts that is causing us to lose our children, and worse, to harm them. Today, the coalition, along with 46 similarly situated plaintiffs, filed a discrimination against women in New York custody cases lawsuit. It is the first ever federal lawsuit of its kind filed against a state and a judiciary, and a state judiciary, claiming they are responsible for the rampant, prolific, and systemic gender discrimination in child custody cases. This is the most significant women's issue of our time. Women are losing their children in epidemic numbers, and their lives are being devastated. We are filing the lawsuit as the first step towards the implementation of a new system in which judges do not have the power to discriminate against us at will, where women are treated in family court well and fairly, and their rights upheld, and the children's best interests are protected after a divorce or separation. We hope this lawsuit will help garner the attention that this issue deserves. Please take it and use it to help get the word out. We need to unite as women, as a class, in order to bring the system that is harming us down. This lawsuit is possible thanks to a wonderful civil rights attorney who has worked on custody crisis cases at the appellate level for many decades, and she wrote the basic structure of the lawsuit. And a very special New York attorney who is passionate about our cause agreed to take it up and fit it to the New York laws and is filing the case pro bono for us. She will speak first about the lawsuit, and then Damon is going to speak as our communications director and maybe a little more. And then I am going to give an overview of the custody crisis so that we're all on the same page about what it is, how and why it's happening, and what is the thing that is going to end it. Okay, so first I'd like to introduce Sarah Holland, the awesome attorney who is filing the lawsuit for us. So give a big hand for Sarah.
Thank you, Cindy. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Very happy to see you all here. And I'm also happy to say that today I filed a lawsuit in the Southern District of New York on behalf of the Women's Coalition and... okay. Sorry. I should say we filed a lawsuit in the Southern District of New York on behalf of the Women's Coalition and 46 similarly situated female plaintiffs. I think that deserves a round of applause. These plaintiffs, as you know, are women who have been discriminated against in New York family and matrimonial courts. For decades, a false narrative has been spun that women are advantaged in family courts and custody cases. But in reality, the stark opposite is true. Women are overwhelmingly disadvantaged in family court, and the empirical data supports and verify women's independent accounts. The lawsuit we filed is a federal lawsuit in the Southern District, but it includes plaintiffs from all parts of New York State. The defendants are the state of New York, the governor, the New York State Unified Court System, and the relevant supervising judges. We are intentionally not suing individual judges because this really is not about one judge or another who has engaged in discriminatory conduct against the plaintiffs. It's about the system. It's system-wide and it's widespread. Our complaint claims that women's constitutional rights as a class, sex, to equal protection of the laws has been violated. This sex discrimination manifests itself as violations of procedural and substantive due process, such as the patterns of biased judicial conduct that we see routinely, and the treatment of women litigants. The goal of the lawsuit is to legally establish that women have been and are still being systemically discriminated against in child custody cases. We are requesting a jury trial and seeking declaratory and injunctive relief. Our request ultimately is very simple. We want an acknowledgement and a declaration that sex discrimination is occurring, and we want an end to it. We're also asking that women with minor children have a right to a de novo custody case in which they will not experience the discrimination they previously experienced. The Constitution of the State of New York guarantees equal protection under the law, and that's all we're asking for. It has truly been a pleasure and an honor to work with Cindy Dumas of the Women's Coalition. Cindy has put in countless hours of her time, and this has been a huge lift. So thank you, Cindy, for all the hard work you put in. It's been an honor to be part of this. Again, I'm happy and proud to be here. This really is a historic moment, and I look forward to continuing to fight for women in this very important effort. Thank you all for being here. It means a lot. Thank you.
Oh, so you'll be able to ask Sarah questions afterwards, by the way, and me, and Damon. So thank you, Sarah. That was excellent. And likewise, it's been so wonderful working with you too. Real pleasure. Okay, so now I'd like to introduce my amazing son, Damon Dumas, who remained strong the entire 10 years that family court judges covered up the abuse by his father and tried to break him and silence him. He remained unbroken and stood by the truth the entire time, even through some dark, dark times. I am so proud of him and immensely grateful that the efforts that were made to damage our bond did not work. And we are closer than ever today, as you can see. He is a writer, and he got a dual degree from UCLA in English and Communications, and now he is working as the Women's Coalition, at the Women's Coalition as our communications director. He's managing all of the audiovisual stuff today, so he might be up and down and around. That's what's going on, as you probably already noticed. But yeah, so Damon's going to speak for a little bit first, and then I will be going over the custody crisis. So let's give a big hand for Damon.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. In my speech, I begin with saying that many of you may be wondering why I'm up here, but I don't think anyone actually is. But still, there is this question in the air, right? What kind of performative matcha latte nonsense has me, a man, standing in front of all of you to talk about discrimination against women? I don't have kids, but if I did, it would be true that I would be advantaged if I tried to wrest custody of those children away from my imaginary ex-wife, huzzah for me. Of course, a custody case, though, it's not merely a tug of war between two parents with an inert rope in the middle. And I'm here to speak for that rope, to speak for the children. After all, the degree to which judges here in New York, and indeed around the world, unethically discriminate against women is precisely the degree to which the discrimination against women causes those judges to fail to uphold the best interests of the children. If it weren't for the damage that this hammers into children, we simply would not be here today. My case is, perhaps, especially dramatic. When my family court judges, yes, plural, treated my disclosures of my father's abuse as instead false allegations coming from my mother's side of the tug of war, they sent me back time and again to live under the control of that abusive father. A nightmare continued, a nightmare refueled. A story that will be all too familiar to many of you. No, the piece that sets my story apart from so many of the tragedies that befall us today is less the tragedy of it and more the ending, being able to finally emancipate myself through marriage at the age of 16. So really, I'm here to tell you a sob story unique only in that it has a happy ending. And yet, what am I left with? How well do I sleep? When you're hurt young enough, it's hard to tell which of your broken pieces were fractured from the outside and which are simply who you are. Eventually, the distinction ceases to matter. You are the victim of those broken pieces either way. You live with the consequences of every failure, those you could have prevented and those you could not. Your legs ache with each slip on the cliff edge trail of life. And that itself is another form of luck, really, another kind of privilege, to have the cut glass shards of your soul slice only against your own skin. Often your sharp edges carve instead into the ones you love. This only multiplies the bleeding, multiplies the pain. I'm sure I don't need to remind anyone here how full of light children can be at their best, how joyful, as if their sheer whimsy could carry them into the sky like so many kites. We gather here today to rage against the dying of that light. We do not underestimate the odds stacked against us as we battle an entrenched system. We do not expect our victory to be easily achieved. This war has battled beyond our memories. But we will not be gentle as children are swept into that dark night. We will rage against the crushing of their light. Thank you.
Out of the mouths of babes. Is that what they say? Okay, well, thank you so much for that. That was excellent and moving, very moving. Yes, we're here for the kids, even though we always are saying this is a women's issue. Don't let people tell you that you're just interested in yourself and women and wanting what you want and your power and control. We're not in it for power and control like most of the men are. We're in it because we want what is best for our kids. We want them safe. We want them to develop healthily. And in order to do that, they cannot be taken away from their primary attachment figure, their mother. They will not get as good of a life, and sometimes they will even be harmed by being taken away. So, speaking to the choir here, but Yeah, so that was a little intense. I'm sorry if we're triggering anything, but I guess we can't help it, right? That's why we're here, and it's okay. It's good to process emotions and yeah, deal with it. Okay, so the custody crisis is not just happening in New York or the United States. It is happening everywhere. The Women's Coalition is contacted every day by multiple women around the country and the world, and all who have similar stories to our own. So what exactly is the custody crisis? Because a lot of women are getting that one little basic thing wrong. So the custody crisis is just one thing. It's the epidemic, really the pandemic, because it's worldwide, of judges switching custody from good, primary nurturing mothers to abusive and self-serving fathers. Women are discredited and degraded, and their testimony and evidence is discounted and disregarded. Judges accomplish this great custody switch with tried and true methods that have been in use since the 1980s. Many of the systemic tactics judges employ, they're in the, the statement of facts in the lawsuit. So in the discrimination lawsuit, you will have a statement of facts, and you'll see a list from A to P in that. So that is a list of the most common tactics that judges use to switch custody. And some of the most common ones are judges not affording women a fair hearing, appointing evaluators and children's attorneys who steer cases to the father, and falsely finding women to be some version of mad or bad, liars or mentally ill. And there are many versions of that, many ways to say each one of those prongs. And I'm not going to go into them. I'm sure if you guys want to say what exactly you were accused of, I guarantee you it comes under one of those things. You're either some kind of bad, malicious, lying, alienating, or mentally ill. Oh, you're borderline or bipolar, or you're delusional. That's a good one. They love calling us delusional. Okay. So, children are often taken and isolated from mothers, while court-appointed therapists coercively persuade them, i.e., brainwash them, to recant their disclosures of abuse and comply with living with their father. Women are constantly threatened, implicitly or explicitly, with the loss of their children if they do not get with the program. So I'm going to use my case as an example of this unjust custody switching because it fits the pattern perfectly. I know it well. I have it all documented, so I'm not going to get it wrong. So I'm using my case as an example, but please don't think it's because I want to focus on my case or talk about it. I just think it's a good example of how judges are doing this deliberately rather than mistakenly, as is so often understood to happen. And, okay. So, you met my youngest son, Damon, and when he was 6 years old, he disclosed sexual abuse by his father that he could remember occurring since he was 4. He told CPS, the police, his court-appointed attorney, and a children's advocacy center therapist. The judge disregarded his brave disclosures, even though he had told in detail about many times and places it had occurred. The judge actually said on the record, it didn't matter whether the abuse happened or not anyway, because he was going to have to live with his father, and you better get used to it. He threatened me that I would not see my children again if I continued to try and protect Damon in court. So, his father was given a green light to continue the abuse, and he did exactly that. So, after nearly another year of more abuse and Damon suffering severe trauma symptoms, I decided to take my boys into hiding. We actually had a good time in hiding. We became closer, we had fun. I was lucky enough to have the money to live well in hiding. So all of us, his two older brothers and I, became very close. Damon processed the trauma over the 3 years that we were out in hiding, had many flashbacks, talked about it, processed it, and he actually recovered quite well in 3 years. In fact, he recovered so well, I thought about coming back. But, so while we were in hiding, my oldest son actually videotaped the flashbacks that Damon had and talking about the abuse. So we have all of that. My oldest son did that. And my oldest son, my middle son, and I constantly told Damon we were there for him, we were going to protect him no matter what. So, after about 3 years, my oldest son was ready for high school, and I thought, well, Damon's almost 12, so maybe I can come back. They can't ignore a 12-year-old like an 7 or 8, right? So, and then the judge was actually a woman judge, and she had a blended family of 7 children. So I thought, okay, this time I got a woman judge, right? She's got 7 children. She's promising if I come back, she will listen to what my son is saying. Right. So I came back stupidly, believing her, and of course she lied, like so many judges do. Damon told a new CPS worker, a new children's attorney, a new psychologist, a new children's advocacy center, and others about the many years of abuse by his father. This new female judge disregarded and even concealed the evidence. She wouldn't even allow the the Advocacy Center videotape to come onto record, but they told us what it said. So anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because it's not just disregarding, it's active concealing that is going on. So just like the first judge said, she also said brazenly on the record that it didn't matter whether his father had sexually abused him. Damon was still going to have to live with him. So they took him away from me. I didn't see them for a long time, my children for a long time, and they did the court-ordered brainwashing thing I was talking about earlier. So they appointed, or she, the judge, appointed a psychologist that had been doing this for 25 years. He had been manipulating children into shutting up about abuse and going along with the program to live with their father. What's interesting is much later, a mother came to me when I had my organization, and it turns out that her daughter was being molested by him, this psychologist, the grandfather, and her ex. So they knew who they were appointing when they were trying to get my children to be quiet and compliant. Anyway, in my case is not unique. I hear this from so many mothers that they have special psychologists who do this, and therapists. So anyway, this unethical criminal psychologist, because it is a crime actually to use coercive persuasion in this way, it's a crime. And anyway, he proceeded to use the well-honed tactics on my children while they were isolated from me by court order. So that made them putty in his hands. They were kept under my ex's complete control, away from me and anyone who could support the truth about their father's abuse of their brother. And while they formed new identities and new lives with their father, I miss them so much. We were so close. And my older sons are one of the, my older sons are one of the reasons that I keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm never going to stop. I do not want this to keep happening to other mothers and children. This annihilation of mothers and children's bond is the worst. It is the most severe form of what we call judicial alienation. Judges are the ones that are alienating, not the fathers. The fathers would not be able to alienate the children unless the judges either ordered it or they ignored orders that said the children should be with the mother. One way or the other, the judges are the ones responsible for this. And they're doing it deliberately. I mean, can you imagine how evil a person has to be to do that to mothers and children? And yet, these courts are full of these people who prioritize what benefits them over these children who are being harmed, and along with their mothers. They're full of them. There is something about the rot rising to the top or something, but anyway, I'm getting off on a little tangent here. I'm gonna get back to what I should be saying. Okay, so judges enabling fathers to alienate children from mothers via court-ordered therapists or by allowing the father to keep children away from the mother is what we call judicial alienation now. It kind of bypasses all that parental alienation stuff, and we just call it judicial alienation because they're the ones that are causing it. We recently lost Dr. Julia Goldmark to this. Her ex was enabled to keep her son away from her completely for over 4 years, and she was in so much pain that she ended her life. And she is not alone. R.I.P. Julia. We are here to end what happened to you. So I just want to quickly detour and say something about alienation because I know a lot of you have probably been influenced or persuaded to not use the term and told the alienation is unscientific, and that's the problem. But actually, the problem is not the word or the term. It is that judges are falsely accusing women of alienating and then allowing the father to actually alienate the kids. In a study that we did with the Women's Coalition, it was, I think, 60 to 70% of the moms reported having been alienated from their children judicially, but only like 20 or 30 were falsely accused of it. And most of the organizations now are out there concentrating on those cases where mothers are falsely accused of alienating, and they ignore the fact that the bigger, much bigger problem is that judges are actually allowing fathers to do the alienating. So that's one of our goals at the Women's Coalition, to try to help mothers see that we need to reclaim, or actually just embrace the word alienation and use it, because that's what the public understands. The public knows what alienation is. They don't know what DV by proxy or all of those other things that they're trying to replace it with. You tell your coworker, the judge allowed my ex to alienate my kids from me, your coworker will go, oh no, because people know that that is not a good thing. That is a horrible thing. That is terrible. So anyway, I'm trying to get women to pass the word along and say, let's embrace alienation again and focus on the fact that we are being alienated. And the other problem, yes, is a problem. Judges are lying about us alienating, but you know what? They're lying about us doing all kinds of other things too. The list is endless of what they can accuse us of or find us of. So focusing on this banning parental alienation and stuff is just not getting us anywhere. So yeah, there are just countless ways around. Say if parental alienation was actually banned, do you think the judge won't have another way of taking them away? They'll just say, oh, they're enmeshed, or she's interfering with the relationship with the father, or there's just a million ways. So anyway, I'm just getting off the track there too. So back to my story. So fortunately, the brainwashing didn't work on Damon, but his older brothers were unduly influenced and went along with the lies as a psychological survival mechanism. which allowed that new identity with their father to gel. They did what they were told. They compartmentalized the abuse, the truth, and moved on. The famous perpetrator calling, just put it in the past and move on. So anyway, they are victims of that manipulation. At 14 years old, Damon had enough of being forced to live with his abuser and went into hiding by himself. He couch surfed at other mothers' houses who had the same thing happen to them and their children. So it was sort of a secret underground, but not an official one, just sort of on the down low sort of thing. But while he was out there, he hired his own attorneys, filed for custody, filed legal affidavits, swearing legally to what had been done to him. And bringing those to court, he tried to get emancipated. He tried all kinds of things by himself at 14, 15, and 16 years old while he was in hiding. And he actually went before judges in Northern California, because that's where the abuse first happened. Then in LA, why were you in LA, I forget?
We filed a restraining order in LA, but I should note here that Damon went before the judges with my attorney. I was.
Did I say before?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't mean
I
that.
was in hiding. I wasn't about to walk.
His attorneys, yeah, his attorneys.
Yeah.
Oh, good, I'm glad you, yeah.
It was the restraining order that we were filing in LA because we were just trying to find other venues, really, and it didn't work out for jurisdictional reasons, even though there had been a time where I'd been abused in Los Angeles. It wasn't where the majority of the documented abuse happened, so the judge dismissed it for jurisdictional reasons.
Okay, so the point is even as that old, as a 16-year-old, saying what happened to him without me, his mother even, being involved, anyway, made no difference, but he did a really good job with all those things. But then after about 2 years, he started getting really depressed, and I was getting really worried about him out there and not knowing what to do. What are we going to do? Nothing has worked. And then manna fell from the sky, and we found a loophole in the law. At 16 years old, a teen can get married with only one parent's permission. Nevada was the only state you could do that. So we went to Nevada. Well, first of all, that's how he could get automatically emancipated without a judge's signature. He was trying to get the regular emancipation, but you need a judge's signature. So by getting married, you avoid that. That's kind of the loophole. So you get married and judges have nothing to say, and you're out of family court. But we needed to find somebody to marry him, and I knew how vindictive my ex was, and if any of my friends' kids would marry him, he'd sue them or come after him or something. So we had to get a little creative, and so we went to in Nevada. Just happens to be a good place for those houses of ill repute, if you know what I mean. So we visited quite a few of those, and we ended up in Reno at the Mustang Ranch. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but it's pretty famous for that sort of thing. And it was Easter Sunday, and nobody was there. It was kind of empty, but the madam was there, and I told her the problem. And by the way, the other brothels we went to, the madams were totally on our side too, but it was too expensive. They're like, oh my God, that's gonna cost you, $10,000, $20,000 or something. I'm like, oh, couldn't you do it for free for a good cause? They're like, no. Anyway, we ended up in Reno at the Mustang Ranch, and that madam said pretty much the same thing. She said, I totally think it's great what you're doing. I wish I could help you. It's going to be very expensive. Okay, so I'm leaving, and Damon's in the car waiting for me. And on my way out, this really cute young woman, she was maybe 21, comes up to me as I'm leaving, and she says, oh, hi, my name's Brittany. What are you doing here? And I told her, and the look on her face, she's like, really? And you guys aren't going to believe this. She was going through a custody battle of her own with her 2-year-old son. And she said, of course I'll do it. So we agreed on a price. She married Damon. It was quite a thing. And so we lucked out. Damon was finally free. Nobody could touch him. Oh, and by the way, we had Fox News LA, which is one of the biggest stations in LA, reaches millions and millions. Back then, when MSM was a little more popular, it reached lots of people in LA, and everybody was rooting for Damon, right? So the reporter came out and videotaped the ceremony, and it was played all over Los Angeles that he had gotten free from family court. Well, guess what happened to all that? Scrubbed off the internet. And I think that our judge, was behind that. She's one of the richest people in San Diego. She married into the Scripps family, which is one of the big families. Anyway, okay, so it was a happy ending. Damon was home. He was free and safe. He went back to high school and a normal life where he could be with his friends and just have a good time. And he got to live. Best part, he got to live with his mom. So, anyway, by the way, after that happened, well, so that was a loophole. And I don't know if I made this clear, but that's no longer a loophole. They ended that loophole after Damon escaped. The old boys didn't want that to keep going. They didn't want any other kids to do what Damon did, right? So they're stuck until they're 18. So even at 16, you cannot get away from an abuser.
I believe you can still get emancipated by joining the military at 16, but I don't know if the military requires both parents or not. But
Probably.
yeah.
And then you have to go in the military.
That's so true, yeah.
Let's see, which is worse, abusive father, military. Abusive father, military. I don't know.
There are many like it, but this one is mine.
Okay. Anyway, so for those of you moms here today, I know that my experience probably does not surprise you at all. But I think it's very shocking to the public, and they just don't know that this kind of thing is happening. And like I said in the beginning, is that my story is just one of thousands, probably millions over the last 4 or 5 decades that this has been going on in this version. Yeah, because, women walk into family court every day believing that their rights as women have been secured. I think, what's going on? We're shocked when we realize that we have zero custody. Zero power to maintain custody or protect our children that we gestated, we birthed, we risked our lives birthing our children. We nurse and nurture our children primarily. And yet, no respect, no power, no way to keep our kids if a man decides he wants them and goes to court and tells the judge that he's the better parent or we're the abusive parent. It's like, okay. And it's not that judges are believing the father and not the mothers. They're discrediting us and crediting them. And this is something I see a lot of the organizations and activists get wrong too. Oh, well, the judge didn't believe it because the evaluator said I'm crazy. It's like, no, the judge knows exactly what's going on. That's why we focus only on judges. We don't go off on, all the different appointees and everything else. That happens because they have the final word. So, since we all here know the awful truth, it's time for us to spread it. We need to warn women that their children can be taken away for any or no reason at all, no matter how much evidence we have that it is not in the children's best interest or is extremely harmful. Unfortunately, women are being given misinformation by other groups that purport to support women. Many go by the name of protective or safe parent groups. These groups say it is not about gender, it's about abuse. Most of the cases involve men. Most of the other cases. So there are about 70% of the cases that involve overtly abusive men. Credible reports by women of overt abuse. But the rest of the 30%, a lot of those men just want custody for different reasons. They want to avoid child support, reduce it, or even get child support, get paid by the mother. And some want to just maintain control after leaving, or punish wives for having dared to leave them. So they love to call us vindictive, but they're the ones that, in reality, are very commonly vindictive and angry that they are no longer in the marriage. So on the other hand, there is no crisis of judges falsely finding men to be mad or bad to switch custody to undeserving or abusive mothers. It just doesn't happen. It's not a thing. It doesn't even rise to the level of a social problem, even though you have a vocal minority of men out there saying they're being screwed in family court and they should have had custody and all this stuff. There was an attorney in Florida named Liz Cates. She has a really great website. But anyway, she decided to look into these fathers that were leading these groups that were saying they were the ones harmed in family court and blah, blah, blah. And she found that all the most vocal ones had credible reports of abuse against them. By the way, she literally went into all their documents and everything. She did a great study. So be careful when men come to you. They're very good at the sob stories of saying, this happened to me, and, it's not happened to them. It's a whole different thing. And even if they really unjustly lose custody, it's not because of systemic female entitlement by any means. So the reason it's important to understand that this is a women's issue, specifically discrimination against women in custody cases, is that unless you attack the root cause of a problem, it will continue. Just as this crisis has for the nearly half century of this modern iteration of the crisis. And it's important also to understand that what's happening to us, to our generation, is just the modern version of what's been going on ever since patriarchy took hold 10,000 years ago. Patriarchy literally means rule of the father. That was the point. Keep the father in control. Men made alliances to stay in control of wives and children, and all men would agree to get along with the other men, whether they were abusive or not. At first, men legally owned women and children as property and could use and abuse them as they pleased. When women got custody rights on paper, in the 1800s, I think that started, even during the so-called tender years doctrine, it didn't make any difference. Because men would just tell the judge the mother was mad or bad. Sound familiar? Same as today. And the father was able to take the kids, was enabled by the judge to take the kids. It's exactly the same thing that's going on today. And some women and organizations miss that through line, which shows that it is a women's issue and a male entitlement issue. So this scourge has only changed in form over the centuries, not in substance. Family courts just became the main staging grounds for the continuation of male prerogative. When women finally gained the financial ability to leave abusive and otherwise undesirable men in the 70s, men made sure there was a system in place to keep their most coveted power over their women and children. Judges, both male and female, are expected to uphold this agenda. If they do not, they face not being promoted or even losing their job. And the better they do their job of empowering men, the more old boy perks they get. The judges who covered up Damon's abuse were both promoted to presiding judge of the San Diego family court system, which is one of the largest in the entire country, serving over 3 million people. They are both still working in the system. If you want to know anything more about our case, there's a summary with the names. I'm not going to be naming names today, but there is a summary at savingdamon.com, which is a website that we started when we were in hiding the first time. And it's sort of just lived on since that was, 2005, I think we started that one. So, now that I've gone over what the crisis is and how and why it is happening, I'm hoping you see that there's only one thing that will and can end it. The core problem is that judges have virtually absolute power. They can lie about us being mad or bad, and there's nothing we can do about it. We have no power in family court. Zero. Judges should not have the power to falsely deem us liars or mentally ill, contrary to all the evidence. But the fact is, they do, all the time, every day, and it is life devastating for both us, women, and our children. The only way to fix this is to get custody cases out of family court and into a real court where judges have no more power than a regular judge. In other words, judges just simply uphold the law, and juries serve as the fact finder. Our proposal, the Child Custody Act, states that the children's primary bond and nurturer should retain primary custody after divorce. And if the jury finds there is physical or serious emotional abuse, that parent should be on supervised visitation. If the jury finds that there is sexual abuse, the perpetrator should have no contact with that child, and the research supports that. That is what is best for our children, and we need to fight for that. No matter the backlash that we're going to get, and we are surely going to get a ton of backlash from many corners, but especially from the men's 50-50, mandatory 50-50 activism groups, which sometimes go under the guise of parental alienation groups, so be careful about those. Always check if the underlying thing, and most of them are 50-50, it's a men's group and not good. So in order for us to have the power to implement this new system, we need women as a class to unite and fight together for it. We are more than half the population. And when we come together, we can accomplish anything. So I hope you will go out and spread this truth and get women to join us so that we are all under one umbrella, shared set of facts, shared set of goals, and we can end the crisis. Anyway, circling back to the beginning, this is the most important women's issue of our time. And it's time to finally get together and fight for what is rightfully ours, a fair process after divorce in which the best interests of our children are upheld. So, thank you to all of you for coming today, those of you who are participating in our lawsuit. This step is a huge step forward to establishing that the crisis is caused by systemic discrimination against women. And after we establish that firmly, legally, with Sarah's help and this lawsuit, then we can fight to end the discrimination. And we will finally, coming together, we will finally have the power to keep and protect our children. Thank you.